Hey, everybody. There's very few devices these days that just knocks me off my socks and makes me question things. But I want to talk about my Holo Audio Red and what it's been like. I've had it for about a month now. And I know Golden Sound has done some objective tests to it and shows that it has really low jitter. And I mean, I have a streamer too. I have a Metrum Amber. I've used streamers since 2016. I've moved up from all these different Pi streamers, Pi hats, Digi Plus, and then I even tried a Pi 3 AES at one time. But then the Holo Audio Red kind of caught my attention, and I was like, I gotta at least try it, right? It's a pretty expensive box. And even when you buy it, you buy it and then you just wait, at least in the United States. I don't know about buying it in other countries, but you just wait and wait and wait. Then one day you get a DHL notification and you don't get an email from Tim K. You don't get this hey, it's shipped. Hey, it's it's stateside. Hey, it's here. You just get a DHL text. Hey, it'll be there in a few days. You have shipment. So it's kind of like a weird sort of leap of faith, I guess you would say. But a lot of people were talking about it. I was like, okay, I've at least got to give it a try. And streamers are one of those things that it's hard to kind of borrow from somebody, like a DAC, or headphones. It's because you have to set it up for your network and you have to configure it and you have to do all these things. So it's a very personal thing to, set it up and stream it. It's weird to do a streamer loaner. So I just had to buy one and check it out. And I'm going to tell you, it is worth every bit of what I paid for it and probably more. It is, I would put it up against almost any CD transport. It sounds phenomenal. So I kind of wanted to talk about it here and kind of wanted to show you, for those that may be familiar with it and those that might be not as familiar with the Holo Audio Red. So let's just look at it right quick and then I'll talk about it some more. So this is the front. There's only one switch, which is the power switch off the back. You just have this green power indicator and the logo on the front. This box, I mean, you see how small it is. It probably weighs about 5 pounds, almost 5 ounces. Pretty sturdy, hefty box. And we'll take a look at the inside in just a minute. There's really not a lot there, but the case is very substantial. You have your power over here with a fuse, with the switch, your Ethernet in, your USB in and USB out, which we'll get to in a second. And then you have your TF card to boot from, your 2 coax, both RCA and BNC, your Toslink optical output, your AES output, and your I2S. One thing I want to mention right quickly is that on the bottom, there are these dip switches. There's 4 dip switches on the bottom that you can configure. And if you look in the user guide, which I do actually have, it comes with this user guide. And in it, it will tell you what to set the switches for, the I2S specifications, and it'll tell you what the dip switches do. You can download this as a PDF from their website. The link is in the description. But let's get to these USB in for a second. For those that don't know, for those that do know, you already know this, but if this will double as a DDC or digital to digital converter, which means that you could use your USB from your computer audio out into the USB in and get AES or I2S out, as well as it being a streamer which you can boot from, with the TF card. that's pretty cool, but there's no switch on the front to tell it like how to use this USB in. It tells you in the manual basically what happens when you first turn this unit on. It will check to see if it can make a handshake with the USB in to an audio output, and if it can, then it will use that. If it cannot connect to a computer, and if there's nothing connected here, then it will boot from the TF card, and you can use everything from there. That is because the reason why is because it's using the Holo Audio uses the USB output of the CM4 module that's in here, like their own sort of XBoss, like sort of like magical thing to give you the I2S output and the AES output and all the rest. They're not using a separate like I2S output. So when you configure your like Raspberry or CM4 module, like whatever that you have, like if you load up a different OS than Red OS, then you would just select USB output. You don't select a I2S output like you would others, like Allo Audio or Allo Digi1 or a Digi Plus or any of those I2S modules, any of those HAT modules, the Pi 3 AES or Pi 2 AES. You wouldn't use any of those. You would just use USB. So that's why it has it. And maybe later models will have like a switch where you can, or remote or thing where you could say, okay, I want to use USB in, or I want to use the USB in of the Raspberry Pi. A lot of times disconnecting that USB kind of crashes the Raspberry or something like that. There must be something going on because that is not allowed. You have to shut the unit off, connect it. So that's kind of a bummer for some people that like to have everything connected, and then you have to like not get connected. Some people have said, you can use the AB switch, so you can, but you still have to power cycle the Holo Audio to use the DDC. I will say the DDC, I've tried it. I've actually, listened to it in comparison to the streamer. I don't think that it is as good, I would say. It sounds really good as a DDC, but I think using it as a streamer is by far like the best use of this box. So I think the added DDC is a cool like feature. But if you're looking for to just do DDC, I don't know. It's a pretty expensive box just to do that. Like, you might want to use like other boxes, but it's still, it still gives you lots of flexibility to use streamer later. So, I don't know. To me, I think it's just an added feature, but I wouldn't buy it, like I said, just for that. So let's just look at the internals right quick. So you can see here on the left-hand side, you have the toroidal power transformer. Then on the right-hand side, you can see the CM4 module. You can clearly see the Raspberry Pi. And you just have like a linear power supply. And then it's just basically like, it's pretty boring. Like on the right-hand side, you see the XBoss chip. And, you just see, some capacitors and some other, surface mount like stuff. I mean, there's really not much to it. I mean, it really, it is kind of a computer sort of DDC type device. There's nothing really like sort of exotic, but I just wanted to quickly show the inside because, we're all curious about what's on the inside and what's all driving everything. And yes, there's no switchers. There's nothing going on. It's very linear power supply. But let's just talk about then the quality. I mean, the quality of the box. Like I said, I've used streamers, and the streamer that I used before this one is a Metrum Amber, and basically a Metrum Amber. It's also a pretty expensive box, but all it is a linear power supply. that uses the same Wolfson chip, like the Pi 2 AS and the Digi Plus is using like the same Wolfson chip to get the I2S off of it. It's just the Metrum Amber is using a linear power supply, and it's okay for what it is. It sounds pretty good. It gives me AES output. It does not have I2S output, or it does have I2S output, but it's like the older, like the Ethernet cable I2S output. And I don't really use the I2S output, and that's why I didn't spend a lot of time talking about the I2S configuration, because I know there's some different configurations depending on your DAC, because there's no real standard like for I2S, but there's a couple of standards that some people are following. Even Holo Audio uses their own, like not their own, but they use one of the standards for I2S with the HDMI cable. But I usually use like AES. I just go AES into my my Yggdrasil. I'm going to pronounce that correctly. So a lot of people call it like a Yiggy, but my point being, AES to me is by far, a really good connection between DACs. A little bit better than SPDIF. AES is probably next to I2S, which I2S is still kind of like, I'm still kind of on the fence about, but AES is still really great. And the sound quality of this versus my Metrum Amber was like night and day. I mean, as soon as I plugged this up and as soon as I like loaded like the same OS I was using and everything else, like I tried Mood, I tried Volumio, and they both sounded far and above better than what was on my Metrum Amber. My Metrum Amber, when I would go back to it, would sound more distant. It would sound more fuzzy. It would sound like not as crisp and clean and clear. And I just wasn't feeling like I was getting like a lot of like rich details like out of it that I was getting out of the Holo Audio Red. So it just kind of like opened up and, made my DAC sound different. I remember when I was like doing like pro audio stuff, like back in the mid 2000s, and there's a product called an Apogee Big Ben. And what the Apogee Big Ben does is it's a reclocker, and basically a lot of pro audio, when there was a lot of digital stuff, you would you have a BNC connection for word clock. So you would actually send your word clock over to clock other devices. So basically you could use this other internal clock instead of the, this external clock, mind you, than the internal clock of the DAC. And we used to have all these different, DACs around. There were Apogee DACs, there were, Lynx DACs, there were like several different like brands, and we would try them in even like cheap Behringer DACs, and we would like hook them up to Apogee Big Ben and go, wow, like it really improves the DAC. So you would take an Apogee DAC, you'd hook it up a Big Ben, and you might get like a 5% like increase in performance, say, okay? But you would take a Behringer or like a lower end DAC, you would then plug it into this Big Ben and reclock it, and all of a sudden it sounds like 50% better. And you're like, wow, like it didn't quite sound as good as the Apogee even by itself, but it was very close. Like they were much closer together. So if you had just a standalone of an Apogee and like a Behringer, they would be very far apart as far as their sound. But you hook up a Big Ben, and all of a sudden this Behringer is like, it kind of sounds like closer. It almost, I kind of like evens the playing field. And that's the way I feel about this, is like, because it's almost like a reclocker, because of the jitter that it delivers is just so low that I feel like it's whatever that you plug it into is just going to give it a DAC upgrade. Okay. So that's the way I feel about it. This is a wonderful, wonderful device that I'm going to have. And I'm going to have a hard time because now I want one for my 2-channel stereo system as opposed to just my headphone system. And I mean, I'm going to put the Meetrum Amber, on my 2-channel system, but yeah, I'd really want one of these like everywhere, really, because it just sounds that good. It's as close, like I said, to a really good transport. And then when you think about a transport, I mean, I'm playing a FLAC file off a local network or playing a file off of QOBAs, like, and saying that it has like transport like quality. Okay. Another thing that goes into that, which I'm going to do a separate video on, is Gen 2 player and Doretta. Okay. Now, Gen 2 player and Doretta you could get for any like Pi device and get it to work. However, getting it to work with the Holo Audio Red has just been another sort of eye-opening experience that has like even further enhanced my sort of like relationship with this box, because it's now even closer to just like, ultimate sort of audio bliss. I mean, so if you don't know about Gen 2 player and don't know about Doretta's a weird, like it's a audio protocol, kind of like UPnP, but you need like a host, and then you need like the device, and it does require a license cost, and but I think that it is like totally worth it. Almost on any device. I want to hook it up to actually my Amber, and like then I can get a real comparison about like what I'm doing. But like I said, I'm gonna do a separate video on that and do all those experiments, and then see, and then we'll have to kind of explain, and because their website is like translated from Japanese and it's not very well. But like I said, I'll do a separate video on that. So don't worry, we'll talk about that later. But if you use Rune, if you use HQ Player, if you use like UPnP streaming, then Holo Audio Red, I mean, it's still, I think, like knocks it out of the park as far as like sound quality. And then there's and if you use if you want to go the Gen 2 player route, I mean, even that itself gives you a lot more flexibility about what you can do as far as sources and things like that. So it's been a lot of fun playing with this box, and I'm glad I have it, and everybody that I have that has it and has listened to it, they have to have one too. They got to buy their own. So anyway, like I said, I'll put a link in the description to the Holo Audio Red where you can get yours, and just, it takes about a month. I think they're about a month away from when this video was created. I know when they first launched about a year ago, the wait was a little bit longer, but now I think it's about down to about 3 weeks or so, 3 to 4 weeks. So hopefully, but anyway, I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to hook it up again and go get some more listens in. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.